Skara is a competitive worker placement game that plays over 4 rounds, with you gaining an additional worker with each round that passes. What's really neat about this game is that it also makes use of this resource board, and each player is going to have one of these. And as you're gaining your resources throughout the game, you're going to be putting them into the empty spaces on this board until you don't have any more space to put those resources. Once that happens, you're going to be moving this slider here 1 space to the right to free up more spaces, and then you'll be able to occupy those spaces with more resources. But the catch here is that the more that this slides to the right, the more waste you're going to be creating for that round, because whichever icon is located under the slider, whatever value is on that icon is the amount of waste that you're going to be generating. This is bad because it could cost you victory points at the end of the game. But like I said, the game does play over 4 rounds, with each round granting you another worker that you'll be able to use for the rest of the game. But what's interesting about this is that there's actually 2 different sized workers. The first one you get is going to be your large worker, and all the others are going to be your small workers. And what's special about this is that each of the worker locations can actually have multiple workers on it. But in order to make that happen, it needs to be 1 large worker and 1 small worker. You can't have 2 of the same on the same spot. But also at the start of each round, there's going to be these 3 sets of village cards put out on the table. And each round, each player is going to have 3 turns. And each turn, you're going to be drafting a card from one of these sets. There's 4 different types of village cards offered in this game, with 1 reducing your food requirements each round, 1 gaining your resources, and 1 reducing your waste production. The 4th type is a little bit different because these are your settlers. And these ones are going to be coming with 2 different sets of actions. There's going to be a top action, which is mandatory to do, and then there is the bottom action, which is optional. Each of these settler cards are going to relate to one of the 4 different types of environments, and this is going to be indicated by the icons at the top of the card here. And other cards and actions might multiply depending on how many of those icons you have. You'll be keeping these cards, stacking them by their environment type at the bottom of the board, which will create a little bit of an engine as you're performing those various actions that do multiply off those particular environments. Some of these cards that you're collecting could also come with different rest abilities, which will trigger at the end of the round. After that, the players can place their workers in order to do different things, like collect different resources, or spend those resources in order to cook food, move up their furnace track, clean out waste, or gain other resources. There are also a bunch of other special actions that can be performed as well. And each worker you place should be fully resolved before you place the next one, and once you've placed all your workers, you're going to be taking them all back into your supply. After all the players have done this, you're going to be moving into the end of round phase, where you're going to be resolving any of those rest actions, and then each player is going to have to spend a food for each one of the settler cards that they have in their tableau, or if you're not able to do that, or if you choose not to, you can just discard that card, and then each player is going to produce the amount of waste as indicated on that slider. At the end of the 4 rounds, players are going to be adding up their victory points from their cards, their resources, as well as their progress up various tracks. Then the player with the most victory points at that point wins the game. You can find this one linked down below, and of course you can click to get notified.